Hello, everybody. Kristen here. Today I come to you with a question, maybe kind of impolite question. Do you remember the first time you saw a liver spot or a discoloration in your facial skin pigmentation or a particular wrinkle? Do you remember that sinking feeling of seeing age start to creep over your skin? Well, I do. It happened to me several years ago, and before I had any notion about the You Think secrets and the research that I do today. But I remember this feeling that I had of, looking closer, rubbing, hoping hoping that was dirt and maybe it would come off and it didn't, and I thought, "Oh man, but what's happening here?" And this feeling of the mirror is showing me something that I didn't want to see. And it made this feeling of, I'm going to call it estrangement from my body, begin to be apparent. Um, you know, as you get older and the first gray hair, and there's these signs that something's happening, but I'm actually talking about a moment when it's you notice that it's crossed over into a level, maybe crept up on you is a good way to put it, that that there's some sort of a line that isn't really clear, but you know that somehow you recognize that you've crossed it. And then what I call the decline hijacker moves in on you, and it starts saying things like, well, I have a particularly bad one that my dad used to repeat a lot. He used to say, "It's hell to get old," and it really was for him. He had a very miserable old age, and he died at 63, so it didn't even last very long. I'm almost 7 years past that now. But he used to say, "It's hell to get old," and he'll say, he'd shake his finger at me. You're gonna know that it's hell to get old." It was like, I mean, I don't mean this too seriously, but it was a curse in a way. It was like, here's the way to look at getting old, and you're going to hate it as much as I do. And it, I look back on it now and I think, boy, I don't think he realized what a destructive message he was giving me. And even though I was an adult by then, the feeling of obeying my dad, I mean, he never let go of that idea. It didn't matter how old I got. If he said something, if he said jump, I said how high, and that's just how it was. And he never relinquished that dynamic in our relationship. So, he didn't give me a good message about aging. And that's one of the reasons I think that I feel so passionate about what I'm doing right now, because I realize that those messages that we pick up, and it's not just our family, our culture, all the movies where the middle-aged crazy and the man divorces his faithful wife who's been with him for all these years and starts dating a much younger woman and drives a sports car and gets hair plugs, and God knows, well, God knows what can happen when a man starts getting old. But he attacks it aggressively, and there's a whole science called biohacking where you're supposed to hack the aging mechanisms and make yourself younger, and those are probably, useful. I've looked into them to some extent myself. But the place where I feel the passion is about understanding this inner communication and this idea of the living flame that I like to talk about, this vitalizing force that comes not from the outside. It comes from a connection with the ground of our being, however you see that, the vitalizing force that moves the seasons and fires the sun to shine on the earth, and this fundamental thing called life that is inside each one of us. So that's what I want to talk about today. This feeling that I have, such a passionate feeling about how important it is to take control of our inner communication. Let me put it that way. How we speak to ourselves, how we think about who we are, and how we love ourselves. Not so much self-care, that's like a subset of what I'm talking about. Underneath that is this passionate loyalty to our own being here, and the mission, whatever that mission is. In my opinion, each one of us has vital gifts to offer the sphere that we live in. Some of us are in rather small family spheres, others of us are living more in a community sphere, some in state or nation or global. There's enormous communities available to us, but we're called into them. We have passions, like I do, about this thing that tell us how we need to be communicating with life itself, the way that I'm communicating with you right now. And this fuel, I think, goes beyond anything that you can biohack. In fact, if you look at aging in men, one of the most dangerous things that men do is actually retire. And this doesn't apply to all, I'm sure, especially men that retire out of something and then move into a third act of some way of spending their time that is enjoyable, that they feel passionate about. And for many, it's an area of contribution. All of us that have lived a certain amount of time, we have invaluable gifts, the gifts that we have been cultivating through our life experience. And there's just a myriad of ways to give those gifts back to the world. But whatever it is, to find that and to dedicate time into that seems, in my opinion, to open up the channel of receptivity toward the fuel, the life energy, the life force, what I love to call the living flame. That flame is the vitalizing force for the body. And even though we talk about how chaotic things happen and we get braced to fight or to run away, or even we just freeze, the worst of all, this frozen terror. And those are the things that trigger the mechanisms of the body that are inflammatory and that age it. But we have this other option of learning to live in this centered, connected reality with our own living flame. And that entails many, many things that I like to talk about here, because I think we, without our conscious awareness of this whole interplay, we live in what I call the aging default. And the aging default will occur relentlessly. There's biological trips around the sun, and those have an effect, and there's no way to deny that. But how we spend our time during that trip around the sun is very important. This all came up for me this week because I was watching a podcast with Mel Robbins and this Dr. Idris, I believe her name is Shireen Idris. And she was saying, and this is a board certified dermatologist saying, that the way that your face looks is 20% genetics and 80% relationship with yourself. Now, I would love to talk to this woman. I'm sure she's never heard of me, but I think she's talking my talk for me. She's giving me ammunition here, because this is what I think too, that the environment that you live in, and especially the way that you communicate with yourself within that environment, has a huge impact on the way that you look and on the way that you feel. And knowing that, I think, can shift people's priority. Instead of doing what you have to do and spending the rest of your time in unconscious distracting mechanisms that don't feed your soul, you can make new choices to connect with the parts of yourself and the parts of life and your mission, your relationship with your community, whatever size it is, and put some energy there, knowing that giving and receiving are very much entwined, so that as you give out of your loving presence, you're automatically receiving back loving presence. It's a whole. It's not a divided, it's not a separated, it's a whole relationship. So, checking with my notes. Um, so a couple other things that Dr. Idris said. So good. Really an excellent podcast. She said your skin is the largest organ on your body. How's that for a wow factor? Do you think about your skin being an organ? We think of the heart and the stomach and the lungs and the kidneys. Those all have organ status. But I have disrespectfully called my skin the sack that holds it all together. And I guess I'm going to give that up because now that I hear it a new way, it seems a little disrespectful. The skin is the largest organ of the body. And as a result, it reflects the inner environment. So when we look in the mirror and we see what I like to call mirror shock, we're seeing a reflection of the inner environment of the body. And probably we're seeing a reflection of areas of, let's call it, unloving kindness that we have treated ourselves with. A lack of respect, a lack of honoring. And in this orientation that Americans have of productivity, 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 goal, 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 achieve your goal, 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 and that sets us up for so much failure because how many people actually understand that failing is an integral part of achieving any goal? In order to stretch yourself past where you are today, you have to do things that you don't know how to do. And when you do things you don't know how to do, maybe you don't do them right the first time, or maybe you don't do them perfectly and you need to improve. But that's part of it. That's part of it. So, back to the skin as the major organ of the body. Dr. Idris says, throw away the magnifying mirror. Well, I'm not going to throw mine away, but I'm certainly not going to use it to beat myself up anymore. And I recommend that you do the same if you don't want to throw it away, which I mean, I find it useful. You know, it's a utilitarian tool for me, but it's not going to be an agent of condemnation. It's not going to be a way to look at every little line and liver spot and agonize over them. I'm not going to use it like that anymore because I'm now really understanding how my body is dependent on me to give it direction. If I direct it into decline, it will decline faster. If I direct it into enhancement and growth, it will continue to and be enhanced and grow. So many studies indicate that the brain is always creating the new neural pathways that I like to talk about so much. And the muscles, the muscle. Last week we heard the muscle is the organ of longevity, I believe it was. Well, wow, between skin and muscle, that's a pretty big combination there. So there should be some partnership there, an area where I still require some growth and improvement, but at least I know now, and I'm focusing myself that way. She also says confidence comes from changing your relationship to your skin, not your skin itself. You see, there's a very important distinction there. As you regard yourself with loving kindness and develop a relationship with yourself of loving kindness, of respect, of honoring, of the massive amount of service that the body gives you every single day, whether it's working at peak performance state or somewhere underneath. Just the very act of living in a biological entity from morning to night to the next morning, the amount of functioning that the body does that's in service to you, to your spirit, it's when you really start to learn what it is, it's mind-boggling. It's amazing. Okay, so about skin, estrogen starts to come into the conversation because we know that after menopause, the major the ovaries, which do the preponderance of the estrogen production during woman's fertile years, they give up that job. And so there's probably less estrogen in your body than there used to be. But there's other things too that are important, not just the amount of production, but how is it used? And what do you know we find out about that? Well, it's those little bacterias and organisms that live in your gut that has a whole lot to do with whether the estrogen you have is used effectively or not, or not. And again, the vagus nerve goes all the way down into those intestines, and the vagus nerve reports. And there's a lot of communication between the gut and the brain about the state of the union, right? The state of the union of the body. And so to keep harmony in the gut means that harmonious messages go to the brain. And when harmonious messages go to the brain, the body is in peace and calm and regeneration and healing and taking out the trash, which apparently, like everywhere else, the body has a lot of trash byproducts that need to be removed on a regular basis. And they can't do that as long as well, I won't say can't. It's not an effective system when your body is always wrapped up in fight or flight. All those mechanisms, those trash emptying mechanisms function the best when your body is at rest. Just saying. So, this microbiome turns out to be very important. And the little bugs down there that take over the show when you're upset and inflamed, what do you suppose they do? They, they encourage more inflammation. And when there's peace and harmony and tranquility in your gut, what do you suppose who takes over the show then? Yeah, the peacemaker guys. It's immensely complicated, and I don't think you'd be interested in all those details. It's hard for me even to understand, and I'm putting quite a bit of effort into it. So I'm not trying to oversimplify it. I'm just trying to create enough understanding to to be motivating, like, oh wow, well, yeah. I mean, we all know about how your gut tightens up when you're upset, you get butterflies when you're nervous. There's a lot in our language that indicates that whether we're really thinking about it or not, our gut is very communicative, and at least in terms of negative things. And when you hear nothing from down there, it's probably because you're in a calm, peaceful state. No churning, just the absence of a lot of gut sensation is probably an indication that things are going pretty well. So this gut connection, there's a Dr. Emerin Mayer, and he has studied the microbiome, and apparently the atmosphere down there can change within a very short amount of time. So it's not like a static community where everybody has their address, like where I live, everybody has their house and we pretty much stay at our house and our property and all of that. It's not so much like that. It's like the environment changes, and when the environment changes, the little guys that thrive in the whatever that environment is, they come on strong. Maybe it's more like a football game, right? Where they get the ball when you're upset, and the bacteria that make for calm and peace and restoration and health, they get the ball when you're in a calm, connected state of mind. So, Dr. May or may not be too happy with my summation, but I think I'm saying something that captures the spirit of his work. Love and trust are beneficial to certain bacterial species. That's a more scientific way to say it, right? And the disharmonious state is hospitable to bacteria that create inflammation. And then, of course, we talk about the heart math so much because this is really very, very important that we learn how to connect with our heart in a way that allows our heart to be rhythmic and regulated. And heart math has taught us so much about that. They have this wonderful little biofeedback device that can really put you in touch with how your thinking and your breathing affects your heart rate. And whenever you get into the peaceful states of coherent heart rhythm, then the hormones and other proteins and amino acids and such in the body that are beneficial and health giving and restorative and regenerative, they function much better when your heart is beating in a coherent rhythm. So it's important to cultivate that, and it's not that hard to do. Then there's an aspect of the of consciousness and aging. Dr. David Sinclair from Harvard, this was in 2023, he reported that cells don't lose genetic information, they lose the ability to read it correctly. So the DNA is there. The genes that make up the chromosomes that make up your DNA are there, but they don't always get read correctly. So, I mean, if if you need glasses, you already know that it's not that hard to misread something when your eyes aren't as sharp as they used to be. And so that's just another aspect that as we cultivate this harmonious, connected way of being, that that the transcription of DNA into the amino acids that make up the proteins that make up your life, that system works better. Hmm. It says in my notes I wrote, hormones don't decline because of age. Consciousness stops conducting the orchestra. So we do have a lot of choice about our consciousness. Most of us do, absent, some of these horrific mental diseases that dementia and that kind of thing. It really impedes the ability of your consciousness to show up in your body. So really better to get in front of all of that, and certainly part of what I think youthing is all about. So just taking it back to our mirror shock idea, the more that you can look in the mirror and see the whole of yourself with love and loving kindness and positive orientation toward your life and your future, it just makes for a better inner landscape that can create a healthy body for you to experience those things in. So my orientation is always about love. And I spell the kind of love I'm talking about with all capitals, L, capital O, capital V, capital E. And that's because I'm talking there about unconditional love. And that's a very specific orientation. And I do that because I'm trying to get away from the way that love has been used in our world that isn't really about this unconditional love at all. It's about sentimental attachment and infatuation and um, addictive attachment that's very destructive. And so, this feeling of having this underlying organizing factor of unconditional love, it's very challenging because human beings, myself included, very difficult time with this idea of unconditional love that it is consistent, it's constant, despite any external circumstances. And it's not that easy to call yourself into that standard. But when you do, there are the fruits of the spirit that come along with that that are very beneficial, and it all ties together. To me, the more completely I see this picture, the more excited I get about it because it's meant to all work. And and so as we participate with the way that it's meant to work, I think we have a better experience overall. So let's do this little guided practice. Today's guided practice is about maintaining this experience of appreciation and loving kindness for your body. So let's start with our breathing. So 4 counts in, holding at the top, 4 counts out, holding at the bottom, 4 counts in, holding at the top, 4 counts out, holding at the bottom. And one more time. In, hold, out, hold. And just noticing that if you've participated with that, you've felt the shift already. Now imagine yourself looking in a full-length mirror, whole body. Don't regard yourself in the little details. See the whole woman that you are. Take in the beauty and the magnitude of your physical being. Notice who you are, not spots and wrinkles and lines. See with a deeper eye the fullness of you. Put your hand on your heart and let the feeling of warmth and the weight of your palm connect you with your heart. And send this message to your body. Let's call a truce. No war here. I'm here for you. I'm listening. What do you want me to know? And I'll be silent a moment. Just listen. So just know that your skin, like every other part of your body, is receiving this message now. And take a moment, the third part of the practice, to appreciate something that your body's done for you in the last 24 hours. Did it digest your food? Did it circulate oxygen to every cell in your body? Did it give you eyes to see the glory of creation? in front of you? Did it allow you to appreciate some music or a fine story or a communication from someone that you loved? What can you appreciate about your body right here and right now? This is your body that you're making peace with, not because it's met some outer standard of perfection, but because it's serving you as you journey through your life. So that's about 3 minutes. And in that time, there's very likely been a shift in your gut bacteria that, if you can hold yourself in this beautiful, calm, connected space, will have a real impact on your physiology in the next 24 hours. That's not woo woo, that's science. That's your body saying, okay, we're at peace with each other. Groovy, groovy. So, this is what luminaries do. They take very seriously the opportunity to activate the biological youthing mechanisms that are available to us. They cultivate them by choice. They take time to do that. They make that a priority, and as a result, they're rewarded with a more glorious experience of life. This idea of smelling the roses, the roses will be blooming soon where I live, and that is a glorious, glorious smell. A rose that's growing in nature on a bush, they have most incredible fragrance. And however that translates into your life, I hope that this week you take the time to magnify the beauty and the joy of life and the way that you're living. Please drop me a comment below about your experience with this information, any questions that you have, any concerns that you feel, any aha moments, those things that let me know that my deep desire to impact your life is making a difference for you. That would be such a joy for me to know that. And I'll see you on Thursday. Bye for now.